Let's start this video by comparing the end result of the friend refactor activity against what we are given to us to start with. I've already created both React apps in my folder and copied over their respective source folders. In order to run both of these apps, however, I'm going to have to make a minor change in the package.json. By default, when I run yarn start, the app will run on localhost port 3000. However, in order to run both apps, one of these apps will have to run on a separate port. To do this, I've opened the package.json in the unsolved folder and added this line right here to the scripts. This is for Windows. If you're on Mac or Linux, all you have to do is add port equals 4000 to the start of this. This isn't necessary, but it's a handy trick if you want to run the app on a separate port. Let's start this up. Okay, now that we've got both apps running simultaneously, let's compare the two. With the solved app, we've got a lot more friends than in the unsolved version. The other difference, it seems, is that the removing friend feature doesn't work in the unsolved version. This seems like a pretty easy fix, right? Let's get started. The first thing to do would be to open app.js to understand the code. We're importing two components and a JSON object. Let's start with the wrapper component. App.js is importing wrapper from the components folder. However, when we look at the components folder, we see a folder named wrapper, not a file. When this happens, we're going to be importing the index.js from that folder. When we open up the folder, we see three files. When we open index.js, it actually exports the wrapper.js file within this directory. So why do we have the folder set up like this? This helps with organization because we can keep the CSS files in the same folder structure as the component file. When we open the wrapper, it looks like the reason we have this is to wrap the inner component within this one for styling purposes. The props here would be the friend, cards, and the header. Let's see what it looks like in the app. When we inspect the wrapper element, we can see all of its CSS. Okay, going back to app.js, we're going to look at the imported JSON object. When we open it to take a look, we see that it's an array of objects. This is an array of more than 3 objects, but we're only rendering 3 to the actual page. This is because we're doing it manually, as can be seen here. Our assignment is to automate this so that no matter the length of the array, we can render every single object. To do this, we're going to refactor the code using the JSX function map. We're going to make a friend card for each object. They're going to have the same props that it had before. However, this time, we're also going to be adding a key and an ID. We can use the ID property of each object for this. Great! Doing this has populated the friends list with all of the friends. Now we have to make the remove friend functionality work. In order to do this, we're going to have to maintain something known as a React component state. The reason we want to use state is because when we remove a friend, we're going to want the component to automatically re-render itself and keep track of which friends should be rendered and which friends should not. We're not going to be modifying the JSON object every time a friend is removed. In order to maintain state, we're going to have to refactor the component into a class. By extending component, which is imported from the React package, we're creating a brand new class with all the features provided by the component class. We need to start by importing component from React. Then we will change const to class, and instead of an open parenthesis, we will have a bracket. We also have to remember to render our component when we use classes. If you are confused by what classes do, don't worry about it. There's a great video on YouTube that covers how classes work. It will also do a quick review on object-oriented programming at the start. You can find this video by going to YouTube and searching for Explaining Classes JavaScript and choose to watch the Let's Learn ES6 Classes video by Ryan Cristiani. If you want to skip the review at the start, skip to about 5.5 minutes into the video. Setting states is pretty easy. We just assign properties to state separated by commas. In our case, we're going to take advantage of ES6 and only type friends because the friends property is going to be equal to the friends array imported from friends.json. We're now going to have to create the remove friend function. The functionality is simple. When a user clicks on the X, the remove friend function will be triggered. We will then remove the friend from list.state.friends. In order to correctly identify which friend the user selected, we're going to pass the ID prop from the component in which the X was selected. Let's make that onClick function now. We first have to pass this remove card function down to the friend card component. The child component cannot directly change the parent component's state. The child component must be given access to a function within the parent component to update the state. Let's open friendcard.js and find where the remove function needs to go. We can see this class named remove. This span element is going to need to trigger the remove friend function onClick. We will do this by triggering props.removeFriend parenthesis props.id. In order to test that everything is working, I'm going to console log the ID in the remove friend function. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is that a class is not a function. Therefore, we actually do need to remove this arrow function here in order to make it run properly. Okay, now that we know everything is functioning the way we expect it to, we can move on to creating the functionality. We're going to filter the this.state.friends array for all friends that do not have the ID that is being removed. We can then set state and update friends with the newly updated filtered array. Now let's test to see if this works. It doesn't seem to be working. What gives? Well, if we look back at the code and check out what is being rendered, we see that we're rendering the friends array. What we should really be rendering is the friends array of the state, since that is the array that is being updated. Now let's take a look and see if this works. Alright, we've learned about state and classes, and we've completed the friend refactor app using React. Congratulations!